Well, good morning, everyone. Why don't we get started? I'll call this meeting to order. The Polk County Board of Commissioners. Today is July 12th. All commissioners are present. Are there any comments for items not on the agenda today? Hearing none, before we entertain a motion to approve the agenda, I'd like to add a topic memo of understanding between the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and ODFW after the consent calendar. If that's agreeable, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And do we have a motion to approve the minutes from July 5th?
Someone.
Second that. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. And then do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
Also move. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Welcome. Please join us up here and state your names for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl Kennedy. I'm the chair of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. It's good to be here. See you all.
Good morning. My name is Colby Drake. I'm our Natural Resources Department Manager.
Hi, good morning. Rob Green, Tribal Authority. Good seeing you.
Geez, I thought you retired a long time ago. You probably deserve that. Retire.
Probably. Cheryl keeps me busy.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you today. We're really excited to be here to present this MOA that we're working with through the state of Oregon, through the Oregon Department of Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. I also work with the Oregon Department of Forestry quite a bit, so a lot of acronyms in there. But yeah, thank you for this opportunity to present this today to you guys. Kind of what I'm going to work through is just kind of the who, what, when, where, and why, what we're working through with the state of Oregon and why we're looking at this agreement and why it's important to us. So the who is this agreement is between the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde community of Oregon and the state of Oregon through the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Department. And what this is a cooperative agreement to help partner and collaborate and share resources and carry out projects that will help enhance fish and wildlife populations and habitats within the geographic scope of this agreement. This will help authorize CTGR, which is our tribe, to issue licenses and permits related to hunting, fishing, trapping, and gathering. Excuse me. Where this is happening, the scope of this geographic area includes the non-reservation and non-trust lands and waters in ODF and W wildlife management units. A lot of times wildlife management units aren't quite understood where the boundaries are, and most people are related to the counties. So we've provided a map here that has the county layers over it with the wildlife management units. The wildlife management units are the blue outlines and the red ones are the counties. So you can kind of see where the Trask overlays a little bit of Polk County, but mostly in like Yamhill and Tillamook. But yeah, with the Stocks Mountain, that's in the Polk County area. The Willamette unit was also within the Polk County area. And so, yeah, that's kind of the geographic scope of the area right there in all of the blue. When the next meeting that we have with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Commission is on August 4th. We're on the agenda for that. And that will be hopefully when this goes through that we will be able to implement this during the 2023 hunting and fishing seasons at the end of this year. One of the main questions that we get a lot about this is why is Grand Ronde looking at trying to get into an agreement like this with the state of Oregon? And the big reason for the tribe is this advances the government to government relationship with the state and the tribe. It also helps enhance our tribal sovereignty and giving the tribe the opportunity to issue our own licenses and permits through our own processes. It also allows the tribe to contribute to a positive and sustainable outcomes for fish and wildlife through collaborative projects with the state and other partners. And it also gives the tribe a stronger voice in protecting resources, and it helps give access to our membership to First Foods. And so that's kind of the quick who, what, when, where, and why. And we have a lot of frequently asked questions that we receive in here, but yeah, willing to answer any questions that you guys may have about this. Or if you guys have maybe had anything to contribute or add.
Well, this is I do. It's a great opportunity for us. I think, as everyone knows, that the Confederated Tribes is made up of multiple tribes and bands, most of all of Western Oregon. And we have, not to confuse everyone or believe, we have 7 treaties with the US government, and the ceded lands that we have are almost all of Western Oregon. So Grand Ronde, of course, is the headquarters for our people. That reservation was created in the 1857.
Mhm.
And so all of our peoples were moved into the Grand Ronde area from the northern part of Oregon, right by the Columbia River, or down to southern Oregon, the border of California. So our people made a home here and have lived here and occupied the area, even though we were terminated in 1954. I was born alive during that time and was terminated, and that basically meant you were no longer native. You were not considered that by the US government, and all the lands were taken. When we were restored in 1983, all of our treaties, all of our rights were returned as well. So this hunting and fishing agreement with the state is really to have that partnership with the state that helps us to do the things and live the way that we used to. Sovereignty and sovereign foods is very important to us. I have several grandchildren, and my grandsons always tell me, when will we ever be able to do that? You were able to do that when you were young. What about us? And so they do hunt and they do fish under the regulations of the state, but it is different. So the future of our children and our cultural practices are at stake here. And I really would request that you take action, positive action on this today, and that we be able to add among all of the other letters of support to our packet when we go before the commission on the 4th of August. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Sure.
Sure.
If I could add a few comments too. This is part of a process that we've been on for many years. So when the tribe was restored, it wasn't restored for the hunting and fishing rights. In fact, we couldn't even regulate hunting and fishing on the reservation, as crazy as that sounds. So what we've been doing over the years is entering into new agreements with BFW. We started out with ceremonial hunting, and Cheryl and Colby can talk about just how critical that is for funerals and other important tribal events. So we have ceremonial hunting, and that's been incredibly successful. I know for our members, and we had ceremonial hunting. Then we started ceremonial fishing. Then we have an agreement for what we call the wildlife management plan, which deals with tribal reservation and trust land, which is kind of the mirror image of this agreement. As Colby mentioned, this deals with non-trust and non-reservation lands. And so we're able there to set seasons, requirements, and really regulate tribal members themselves when they're getting tagged. I mean, members could go out, they could go to the state, they could get a tag, they could get a tag. But as Cheryl pointed out, this is a question of sovereignty, and it's the ability of the tribe really to regulate its own members. So then at the end of the year, we entered into a shellfish agreement on the Oregon coast. The shellfish was always such an important aspect for the tribe as well. So this has been a series of agreements going forward. The next piece that we have is for this, which is non-reservation, non-trust. Trust land is kind of like reservation land. So we're building this broader framework for tribal members to go out and hunt on a ceremonial and subsistence basis. Not going out and hunting on private land or things like that. It's land that would otherwise be available for tribal. And it's really the restoration of those rights which weren't permitted to the tribe at the time of restoration. I'm sure talking about just how so critical it is for the culture of the tribe. But that's what we're about. And speaking to you today, because Polk County is such an important part of the tribe, we are looking for support for these agreements. So we go to our FMW, and we talk about how we reached out to our neighbors and to our friends, and they support us. And frankly, hopefully it helps because we want this to be successful. We really do. And the other thing I just want to emphasize too, and Colby talked about, on every agreement that we've done, it's never a matter of just the tribe taking. It's not taking a resource. You know, one of the things that's always struck me, and even at the very, we're putting resources back into those environments. So if you look at how we manage the lands and the reservation and trust lands, we're improving habitat. So the result actually of these types of agreements is that everybody, if any of you hunt or go out, the work that we're doing actually improves the quality of the habitat, improves wildlife stock. Colby, you've done the NRD, so many different studies and improvement of habitat that helps everybody. So it's just not a one-way street. We're putting back and investing in the Cheryl talked about historic lands of the tribe as well. So we think it's ultimately good for everybody. You know, ODF&W doesn't have all the resources, but it should be doing it at state level. So the tribes, just like Confederate tribes have stepped up in other areas, whether it's public safety or other issues, we're putting those resources back into the environment, help those wildlife stock. So we view it as a two-way street in how this works. Thank you, and really do as Chairwoman Kennedy.
So I've got a question. You mentioned regulate and install seasons. So you'll have hunting seasons for your members as well. It won't be year-round hunting availability to be seasonal.
Yeah, if I can, I'll give an example of some of the other tribes, how they've been doing it is they would do something like maybe a week before archery season, where other like special hunts have been available for youth or premier hunts and things like that. So this first year, most likely we'll be following state regs, state seasons and everything just to get that implementation in. But going forward, we will be, well, every year we'll be sitting down with ODF&W, looking at those numbers, talking data, sharing that information and making sure that the resource is the most valuable thing, not necessarily even the practice itself. It's just making sure that we're maintaining the balance of those resources out there. So having that good partnership, discussing back and forth, I think is going to be the key portion. Another big portion of this is other tribes like such as Siletz, Lower Coos, Cow Creek and Cookwell also have these right now. So we'll be partnering and meeting with them and going over, since some of this has some overlap, such as Siletz would be over in the Trask in the Stop Mountain. So we want to coordinate with those people also to make sure that, again, the resource is the most valuable thing for us.
Very cool.
So specific to that, so I watched the hearing and I have been tracking this. There's a lot of conflict here and I'm not anxious to be a part of that. But specific to that statement you just made, why would the commission agree to an MOA that you haven't resolved conditions with other tribal entities on? Why would they do that?
So what we're asking for is your support for this MOA. You're not part of the MOA. It's just
Right.
And so you're absolutely right. There were issues that were raised by Warm Springs and Utah, not in this area that we're talking about here, but over on the east side of 16 and along the Columbia River. So
Willamette Falls.
right, and the raised the issue. We already have an agreement with ODF&W for platform and for fishing in Willamette. We're not touching anything further around Willamette Falls. In fact, if you look at the agreement, I believe Stacia sent it to you, or we sent it back to you. We carved down that area. And Commissioner, to your point, we try to anticipate, we don't want conflict. We try to anticipate those issues when we first did the agreement. So we pulled out any section on the Columbia River east of Bonneville, so we wouldn't interfere with any of the Quebec issues. We pulled that out. Then we also pulled out that area around. We've heard those, and I know Sherwin attempted to engage. We've been back since the June meeting with ODF&W to make further changes to the agreement. So both along the Columbia River as well as in the Sandian. And we hope we're confident after our most recent meetings, we're going to be on the agenda. And we're sensitive to those issues. But, you know, as I'm sure that you know, Polk County, Marion County probably don't always see eye to eye on the same sorts of things. And some things just aren't always reconcilable. But we do our best to try and work through those issues. So we're very sensitive to that. We're not asking you to get engaged in a controversy. We're just asking you to support this agreement as our neighbor and our friend, and knowing the kinds of things that we do. And we think that's important that we demonstrate. So I hope that's responsive.
It is, but respectfully, I will disagree with your premise. Because we've been asked to engage also in other political support elements for tribes, and we have to be very careful because sometimes that can be in conflict with other sovereign nations. So I'm very cautious about this, and I'm most specifically concerned about our support for this for the tribal folks that that the rest of the sovereignty of the state of Oregon don't get. And I don't fully understand all that yet. I'm still trying to learn what that is, but some of that's been based on what is the language that you're going to submit to the commission. So I don't know that yet. I haven't seen that. I mean, I've seen what's been sent, but as you've said, there have been changes made in language since your submittal initially to the commission. So I haven't studied that. I'm assuming that what you're saying is what has been sent to us is the most current language that's going to be submitted.
The language that what you have is on record listed by ODF. I wish I could give you the other language today. Okay, I can't because I don't think that'd be respectful of ODF because we're still engaged with them. But what I can represent to you is that we are sensitive to those questions that have been raised. Look, let me put it this way. So let's talk about the Columbia River. I feel that we're working on language that that's adequately going to address those issues and that they're going to support it. And then it'll be on the agenda. Okay. But there are people today using the Columbia River. But let's look at this. So Cheryl, you know, the tribes are from all the way from Bonneville Dam west along the Columbia River. All those people who live there were ultimately relocated to, for large part, to the Grand Ronde Reservation. So there is that historical tie with that area. And members today use it, but they don't use it under these type of agreements that we're currently looking for. Then you have a period of termination, a very sad period in the state and nation's termination. Everything was taken away from the tribe and all those areas. Other tribes begin to use those areas that are historically associated with them. Grand Ronde is restored. It's restored without its rights. So now what we're trying to do is reconcile that history to provide people access back to those areas. Does that require some things that we have to work through? No, absolutely. And that's what we're trying to do. And so, you know, it's just as the example I said before, or whether it's the state of Oregon, the state of Washington, or whether it's Polk County and Marion County, there are going to be those kinds of issues. We're not asking you to get involved in that. You're going to work diligently to do that. And certainly you can support however you think appropriate on this. But as what I can represent in this area here that we're talking about in Polk County, we don't have those kinds of issues. And hopefully you know us from the work that we've done before. We're operating in good faith, trying to work through these types of issues so that history and those connections with the land, which ancestors, people who are Grand Ronde Reservation can reconnect with those reasons as well. You know, I'll just give an example, Madam Chair, of Willamette Falls. Okay, we know that other tribes, for example, and that's not part of this. We pulled that out, but we already have an agreement with the FMW. You know, Chairwoman Kennedy, your family regulated Willamette Falls, as I understand correctly. And so it's true. Yeah. So
My grandfather was a treaty signer right there at Willamette Falls, the villages.
we have that history. So it was so important also after the reservation was established, because the federal government never provided the resources for the reservation to actually be successful. But people were permitted to leave the reservation to go back to Willamette Falls to fish. Otherwise, people would have starved at the reservation. So both pre-reservation period and reservation period, Willamette Falls remains so important and connected. Did other tribes use Willamette Falls? Yes, Chairwoman Kennedy, you've always talked about that. Other tribes did come visit. Just as tribes here, the people here, because I knew some of the former council members that asked on to went up to Slido Falls and fish. So people did go other places and fish. There are those different currents of history. We're conscious of those. We're trying to work through those. But none of those should impair the ability of us to have this type of agreement to allow people to reconnect. But we are sensitive to the age of the commissioner, and those are things that I'm confident that.
If I may, the agreement is again with the state. It's the federal part of it. That's where our treaties were entered into. I think everyone knows that treaties have boundaries described in them. Anyone's welcome to look at our treaties and to see where our areas are. It's Western Oregon. No other tribe has those areas. The federal government did not decide, well, I'd like to maybe pencil in the Delaware people in Western Oregon or the Umatillas. That doesn't happen. They're very distinct. They're bordered and described fully. So this is with the state. The state, I believe, is willing to move forward in recognizing that, yeah, there were some things that were done in the past that today were more rightly thinking. I don't know if that's the right term, but and we want to correct this injustice. And one of the, just to respond to you, Commissioner Polk, I have personally invited the tribes from the chair, Cat Brigham. Warm Springs has changed their chairs more than they have, but am friends with them as well and said, you can come and fish with us on our platform. Please, we're the only tribe that entered into that MOU with the state of Oregon. Any tribe in Oregon can do that. No one just hasn't done that. So we're pretty open in that way and we'll continue to move forward. We continue to do outreach to the tribes, and I mean, we have what we call an Oregon Tribes meeting that happens pretty regularly. So, you know, we have opportunity and we do discuss things like that. So it's not as if I think that people think there's these big wars that are going on and we're all going to take some captives or something. Really not it.
Some of those intertribal negotiations, let's say this MOA is approved by both parties. Obviously, there might be some changes as things move forward with it. Tribes, how would you kind of share that data and your conservation efforts? How would that sort of collaborate as those change?
Can I take the first part of that? So one of the things with all these agreements that we're doing, these are all non-exclusive agreements.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I just want to be clear about, and I'm sorry if I wasn't clear before on this, is that we're not dividing up,
right,
rights or areas or anything like that. So the area that we're doing, whether it's Warm Springs or Cow Creek or Sweats or anybody else, could do the similar agreement right over top of the same area. These are all non-exclusive agreements. The Chairwoman Kennedy said treaty rights and all that, that's established at the federal level. This is just an agreement like the other agreements. So we have the tribal state agreement. So anybody else can come and do the same sort of thing within that area. Non-exclusive. It's really about just providing access for Grand Round members to those areas. And then in terms of the updates that we're doing, back to you.
Yeah, right now we have the 5 Western Oregon tribes, and then we have the 4 kind of Eastern Central Oregon tribes. Right now, the 5 Western Oregon tribes meet quarterly with the natural resource managers, all getting together, sharing information, sharing data. And that's a quarterly meeting that's set up every 3 months or so that we're working through. And that's the other side that I was going to mention was the non-exclusivity of these agreements is that any other tribe, actually even Warm Springs has an agreement just like this, similar on the eastern side and central Oregon over there on that side. And like I mentioned, Siletz has a overlap with us in the Stocks Mountain, Lower Coos has overlap in the Willamette Wildlife Management Unit. So just getting together, sharing those type of information. Grand Ronde has been, I feel like we're about a decade ahead of some of the other Oregon Western tribes. Said that backwards. The Western Oregon tribes is we have a full 24/7 police department enforcement. A lot of the other tribes don't have that ability. We meet annually, actually semi-annually with OSP for enforcement side of things, because this is different. It's going to look different in the field when somebody, tribal member has a Grand Ronde issued license and a Grand Ronde issued tag out there. So educating, informing, that's a lot back on the staff's plate once this gets approved, and having meetings. We already have a meeting set up for August 8th with OSP to get things moving and organized with them. So it's just collaborating and just continuing the partnerships that we already have in place right now.
Mhm.
I hope that answers what you're looking for.
Definitely.
Thank you.
And one thing I would add
Yeah.
too, we have this for other Western Oregon tribes. The Cow Creek has written a letter of support for Grand Ronde. CT Clusie, Coos has written a letter of support for Grand Ronde as well. At the hearing that was held in June, I believe you said you watched it, Commissioner Polk, so that stated that they supported. So for neighboring tribes that we have, there is support for this, and I know well, in a general statement, after their agreement, because they were the first in this particular type of agreement, wrote a general letter of support for all the Western tribes. We do have some. And as Paul we talked about, those are really our close neighbors, so we really work. We hope to have broader connections in one area, and so we want to be able to collaborate and work with them and the things that we share that information. Frankly,
Add on to that too. We've also been having meetings with like the Oregon Hunters Association with that group, and we've got their support. It sounds like they're going to be sending a letter directly to the commission. Met with the anglers of Association Anglers of Oregon. I believe I might have that a little backwards, but it's a big organization, and it sounds like they're going to show up and testify in our favor, provide that testimony on that side too. So we're definitely in that world of doing outreach and coordinating with our group and our partners and friends.
Have you reached out to other county or other city governments as well?
I believe so.
From
Yamhill, I believe, yes.
I don't know if it was the county, if it was a commissioner, but we did,
I
them Clackamas.
Okay.
have another more of a maybe a technical question for the benefit of folks watching. Might watch this at a later date. So I have here the map, and I'm just curious if you mentioned some of the criteria for drawing out this map and some of the exclusions because of existing agreements. But could you speak a little more about how this map was determined? Is it tribal membership distribution throughout the area? Is it opportunities for harvest and fishing?
One of the things we looked at, one, taking a substantial enough area does not get too large.
Mhm.
Yeah, sure, what the candidate mentioned, the tribe has 7 treaties, so we get a much broader area. That's a lot. So what we did was we looked at the Willamette Valley Treaty in the area covered by the Valley Treaty. Then we looked at the area that was set aside, and the tribe was restored, set aside for the tribe's reservation as well, and looked at that area. So when you look at those areas and you see the wildlife management units that overlap those areas, that's how we came up with this. And we use wildlife management units because in talking with Colby or the folks in natural resources, that was something hunters probably had a better sense on as to what demarcation. But it's one of the things where, and we're thinking about this now. How people who are out there in action can recognize it. So that's how we came up with it. We looked at the historical connection with the reservation, where the reservation is, and that's what we came up with. Where the wildlife management.
Thank you.
And it also relates a little bit to our federal service area, county service areas.
A little bit.
A little
yeah,
bit,
right.
and that would be where our majority of tribal members, Grand Ron, are residing. Play off that, yeah.
Just as a follow-up to your question, one of the things that's so important, and I know council meetings, I'm sure we've heard about this from hunters coming in. You know, the state was somewhat arbitrary, you know, when the tribe was restored. The Trask unit actually only includes the northern part of the reservation, which is the area that people didn't restore. The area where people historically hunted was across the highway in the Stock Mountain area. And so we haven't been able to hunt over there. One of the things this agreement does, it opens up the historic hunting area. So I know we've had people come in council meetings and ask, when are we gonna be allowed to hunt what my grandfather used to? That's one of the things this agreement does. It provides the ability for to hunt in the store.
An example is that is if you drive through Grand Ron, we can't hunt on the south side of the highway. But we can hunt on the north side of the highway.
Can you elaborate on that? When you say can't, why? Why can't you?
We don't have permission, we don't have rights to hunt on that, only through the state of Oregon as Oregonians. So you'd be just,
So who denies tribal members the right to hunt any of that under state law?
So when the tribe was restored and one of the things they did, first they did they did this and that was to limit their historic hunting and fishing rights. And they were limited in the case of select. So that was
Yep.
Stop Mountain Unit.
Just
that was
Stop Mountain.
Stop Mountain Unit. Grand Ron, it was in the. Well, those boundaries, those units were created long after the reservation. Created. So those units bifurcate the actual old reservation. And I don't hunt, but as it was described to me, the northern part of the reservation was more mountainous. People didn't hunt as much. In that southern area over towards, what is that, Saddle Mountain of the
Yeah.
south side, people would hunt up in there, and that was a great hunting area. So you have the historic reservation, then you drop these wildlife management units on top of it. The state comes along and says, well, we'll only support you getting any land back to the reservation. So they've already moved forward with an agreement. And Grand Ron, when it comes to issuing the tribal tag, we're limited to that Trask unit area. This agreement opens up the southern part of the reservation for the Stop Mountain unit. So we can issue tribal tags to tribal hunters because of their.
So I'm confused because you presenting a map in front of me that seems to be what you're saying you're asking for coverage on. That's a lot bigger than the Trask and Stock Mountain unit.
Yes.
So, okay.
So
So I'm confused by that language because I see the map.
no problem. So then you take, and I can send this to you. You take a map of the treaty area. Okay? You take a map of the Willamette Valley treaty area, which essentially runs from the crest of the Cascade over to the Coast Range, heading south. I think it's south of Eugene, south of Eugene. The areas that we're looking at here doesn't take in that area, but it takes in a fair amount of that area as well. That was one of the overlays that we used in creating the center.
So this map is just outlining the actual units, not actually what your language says the area would cover, the agreement would cover.
So in the agreement itself, it's by wildlife management unit. So it's informed, let me phrase it this way. It's informed by the treaty area. It's informed by the area that Congress set aside with the counties, which is Tillamook, Polk, and Yamhill, for the reservation when the tribe was restored. And then you look at the wildlife management units that touch on that area. That's how it came up. I mean, the actual areas Chairwoman Kennedy described is much broader. Yeah, that's a lot of work. And with this agreement goes forward, I mean, good thing for me is that my work's done. But that's Colby over here is going to be very busy in terms of trying to look at areas where we can put habitat, improve wildlife stock, and also regulation of tribal population. And the annual negotiation.
It sounds like there's good precedence for positive partnership between ODFW and the tribes, the Shellfish Agreement and others. Is that?
They work great. And
Yeah.
Colby, you can speak up there and I can. Everything that I've heard.
Yeah, they've been great. The membership goes out. We just get a little sticker that goes on our tribal license and provides that opportunity. And so, yeah, just meeting and educating the OSP and the enforcement side of it and educating our membership. So when they do come in and get that extra sticker for that, they have to go through and they get a FAQ, kind of work through all that process and stuff. That's just a little bit different from the state standards and stuff like that. So yeah, just educating us a lot on the staff side of things.
That will help your efforts in August, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Track record.
Yep. So we're hoping.
Great. Any other questions or?
I have a lot, but we can't answer them all here today.
Well, we may need a bit of time to decide on a letter, but I really appreciate the state's attempts to rectify the harms, particularly with that consent decree in 1988. That really limited what you were able to do and what your families and ancestors were able to do. And I appreciate the education today and the opportunity to engage. And I'm really hopeful that August 4th will be a positive outcome for all parties. So but I will be in touch. We have a chance to sort of investigate a bit more and absorb what we've heard today. It's okay.
That's fine. Thank you. Appreciate your time and attention to all of this. And, you know, actually, if there is a time that you would call upon the tribe to talk about the historical presence in the area and what all of that means, because it is complex. You're talking about federal things that happened, the role of the state with us. This is a 280 state, so that has certain implications for tribes about our membership and the services that we provide. We are a pretty progressive tribe that offers services, and we're very thankful that in gaming we're able to be successful, and those are plowed right back into services, into our charitable organization. So yeah, if you would care to hear about that, we certainly have people who would come and spend time with you.
I would love that. We'd love to get something on the agenda coming up. And we see it all the time too. You know, Spirit Mountain Foundation has funded so many wonderful efforts in our area, and we work closely with the tribes on homelessness issue and many other issues. And as a new commissioner, it's really nice to have such a good relationship. That Polk County has established such a good relationship with the tribes. And we really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. Have a good
Yes,
morning.
thank you.
Take care.
Okay. So next up, we have length of service awards. Mr. Hawkins, looks like Josh has elected not to join us, and Donna.
Yes, good morning. So we do have two individuals we want to recognize for the record, but both have, for one reason or another, been unable to make it here today. So first, we would like to recognize Josh James for 15 years of service to Polk County. And secondly, we would also like to recognize Donna Smith in our behavioral health department for 15 years of service to Polk County as well.
Wonderful. Congrats, Josh and Donna. Thank you for your service. Let's see. Looks like this concludes the regular agenda. Do we need an executive session today?
Yes, sir. The board will meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660 sub 2H to consult with legal counsel concerning the rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed.